right, we got the screen going, we got the tape going.
Good to go?
Asked you about technique. I want to ask you about composition of the work behind us. Tell us a little bit more about how you composed it. You mentioned sort of a mix of realism and maybe kind of a dreamlike quality. I mean, that's me editorializing. But can you tell us more about how you chose to place things where you did in this?
So yeah, I just wanted to look at the well, compositionally, it's all about like placement, about like zooming in, making something greater, bigger, smaller, taking it to one place or the other, or colors. So I mean, for me, the again, what this whole piece was like, that apparition of like the Virgin Mary. So I wanted her to be the largest thing possible, the largest character possible. So the space to the left made it accessible where there wasn't a lot of windows. And I could really like exaggerate her scale a little bit, so I chose to place her all the way to the left, making her face right. I mean, if you're into symbology and elements of symbology, it's like when something is either facing to the left or to the right, it changes the symbolism of it. And so when I mean, usually to the left is referred to as looking back, or as like when you get tattoos, you don't want them looking back per se, like facing them left, because they're looking back. You want them facing outwards, so forward. So in essence of growth, transformation, something positive to grow out of, you know, something forward, you know, we got room to grow. And so, I mean, making her face right, so I kind of wanted to, because she could have been facing that way, the train, to give the people a little bit more, or the people that are passing by on the train. But I guess I had that heavy in mind, you know, make her face right, so that affected the composition. And then from that, making her face right, just everything fell into place, like Juan Diego kneeling to her on the other side of the door, with the landscape which is still being developed behind them, like the mountains still need to be developed, and more cacti, more trees, and then combining stories of like, well, I mean, hearing from the community, right, like from people's like suggestions, like, oh, well, are you gonna put the Mexican flag? Are you gonna make it, you know, like paint more religious symbols in there? Are you gonna put the rosary? So I mean, people did influence it a lot, the people's opinions, and did influence the composition in terms of like important components that are important for the community, like having the eagle somehow in there, right? So I mean, again, playing with this idea of like myths and stories, it all stemmed from like the eagle and the cactus. So I wanted to depict that somehow in there, so that's what kind of like allowed that other component of like the eagle spreading its wings.
That's a reference to Aztlan and sort of the origins of Mexico.
Exactly, kind of like it's seated at the cactus, kind of like grabbing the snake, and you could see like the snake in the mouth somehow. And
a couple of follow-up questions. First one is about community input. You mentioned the community giving you advice. What does that look like? Do you host a public forum? Is it people walking by? Like, how can people influence you as an artist? And does it get on your nerves?
No, I mean, it's all growth. For me, I just take it as growth. I mean, it could look different ways, like the community involvement. I mean, when it's like a city project, they would like to host like community meetings when people have the opportunity to go and voice it. But then, since this is like a private, like the only way people can express their opinions is by walking, and then just letting me know, like, hey, that sucks, or check her eyes, or she's got duck lips, which I did hear, you know. I still, I did change them a little bit. I still got to tweak them more, but so it's hearing comments like that kind of like bring you back to like who you're doing it for, you know. It's where it's gonna live, the people that are gonna see it daily, the people that are gonna interact with it, so their voice is really important, you know. It's really you do have to take it into consideration.
How does the fact that it's a mural play into that? Because if you're doing stuff for exhibition in a gallery, like you're not trying to please the people who live near that gallery or who work in that gallery. Is there added pressure or need to please people in Pilsen? Like, you know, like, does a muralist have a particular responsibility that way?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a strong responsibility. I mean, because I mean, like what I was touching on, it's kind of like spaced out a little bit, but what was the question again? A little bit.
I was asking about like muralism in the community, because other artists who never bother with murals don't have a sense of responsibility to the community necessarily.
True.
How is it different for a muralist?
Yeah. Well, I think it's really, really important. I mean, if you want the, because I mean, you're putting it in public property. If you didn't want people's opinions, then you would have just kept it in your sketchbook at home or in a painting at home. But once you put it out in the street, it's like you're opening that doorway of, because you're invading somebody's, you know, visual space. So they are gonna want to have like, they're interacting with it, they live across from it, so they want to somehow, you know, like feel connected to it. And this being, right, like this community has evolved so much, you know, like has changed so much, like with immigration and transformation in general, everything transforms, that you know, it took us to the architecture of like the Czechs and the Polish and, you know, that built it, and the, you know, like the Mexicans later on that came to paint it, you know. So I mean, it's that we kind of moved in and just started depicting scenes of what the stories that we all grew up on, you know, Virgin Mary. And so I mean, I kind of went all around, but like to bring it back to that, it is important of what you're painting and where you're painting it, because that could determine if people embody it or people want to just erase it or disrespect it.
Perfect. That relates to a very big question I have about painting the Virgin of Guadalupe. I mean, you said you're painting the community stories and everything. This is like the most precious story to a lot of Mexican Americans, and when we're walking around Pilsen, she's everywhere. You know, is there added, like when you're doing something that's like this important to people, how did that feel, or was there added pressure to get the Virgen right because she is such an important piece of the Mexican American story?
Yeah, it comes with a lot of pressure, you know. It's because I mean, you're painting something that people have in their heads. They already have an image ingrained in their minds of what it looks like or what she looks like, you know, based on what we were taught to believe, right? Like, this is how she looks like, and this is how she is, and this is how her character. So I mean, when you're trying to paint her how you see her, it's gonna, you know, it's gonna be 50-50. Some people are gonna like it, like, and then some people are gonna, it's gonna challenge their vision. So it's like your vision challenging their vision. So I mean, I know by me painting her this way, I challenge some other people's visions of like how she is probably a little bit more older, how this one looks a little bit younger. Like I mentioned earlier, I was going up and down steps and I was like having a hard time with the aerosol, and I did a line up there, it looked good, the proportions, but when I came down here, it looked off. So while I was doing that, like some ladies are like, well, why are you painting her with like duck lips? And so I mean, it's the responsibility, it's heavy because of what it really means to people, you know. It's more theirs than who's commissioning it.
I hear you. I'm just being nosy, but I see like a very subtle detail in the halo. Can you tell me about that?
Yeah, that was like 2 spray paints, but one with the sun. Like it kind of washed the, well, that's another thing too, the materials. I use like one copper plated gold, which stood out from the other gold, but with the sun it ate it up. Since I haven't finished it, I wasn't able to to seal it, and then the sun just ate it up. So this summer I'll be retouching that up. And
You mentioned the sun eating it up. That's perfect segue to a big question we have about the ephemeral nature of murals, and the fact that we, as we're walking around and studying murals, we see them being beaten by the sun, the wind, the snow, graffiti, crumbling architecture. How does that affect you as a muralist, as an artist? To say that like this won't be here forever. Someone else might come and paint over it, or the sun might take it over.
yeah,
Any thoughts on that?
I would say it all comes back to this idea of ownership, and creating something to be appreciated. It served its time, and then it's time for it to move on. Time for something else, to another age, another era, to state their voice or state what's going on. I mean, this is surviving now because there's still a lot of the people that are here are still believing in it. This is still something that relates to them. But if we keep talking about time and transformation, who knows what this area would become in 20 years from now, if this would still be relevant or not. So I mean, graffiti, I mean, bringing it back to graffiti, I mean, by having that experience, it kind of teaches you not to hold on to things, because as soon as you do it, a couple of hours later, it's already gone. Like you might risk getting arrested, or might losing your life by getting to that one spot that took you like an hour to paint. And then so that, the next morning you come back and take your picture, by that time it's probably already gone, or somebody already, went over it. Or so I mean, it kind of teaches graffiti in that way. It teaches you to let go, that it's, for at least it taught me that it's more, it belongs to the people that experience it more to you. You're just a vessel that did it. But
You've mentioned that this is a work in progress. Can you tell us, how done is it? We're looking at it in the spring of 2019. Someone might be watching this video much later than this, but how done is it in the spring of 2019, and where does it go next?
this is about 60% done. Right now, what you guys are looking at, it's mostly the what you call the fill-in, or the color blocking. It's just everything that was outlined, now it's filled in. The next layer to this is like not going into more of the contrast to make things really stand out or highlight certain things or components of stylistically. So it needs now like the outlines to certain components, the more landscape details to be added, the scenery, and more refinement.
So speaking of the process, like, how does what's here now relate to like what you sketched? Like, do you change the composition or the style as you're going along, like responding to the materials, or is it exactly what you thought it would be?
No, this sketch has changed so much. Like at least the Virgin and the Juan Diego have stayed since the original sketch, but everything in terms of like some of the scenery, in terms of even like the flowers, the number of flowers, what kind of flowers, it's all been changing, evolving in terms of like the feedback and critique I've been getting from like either the owners or people in the community.
Can I ask, like, what?
Yeah.
What have they told you?
Well, the symbolism of keeping like the 12 flowers, that the 12 roses, that's what she made appear. Like it was December, so there was no flowers, and she made the roses appear, the 12, the number 12 somehow. The number 12, also the use of the rosary, having the rosary in there somehow. The two lily and the daisy for the daughters of the ones who's commissioning the piece. And
I wanted to ask you about that, because usually it's red roses. You got a lily there, daisy. Why that change?
I thought it was all red roses too, but receiving like different feedback from, I guess, communities showing me different depictions of her, like, oh well, this depiction she's got like a bouquet of different color roses, and the movie that was like in the 70s by so and so, she's depicted with like only certain color roses. So getting all these either they're straight red or like different colors, majority. So I just ended up going with like the different color combination of roses.
Okay, just one more question about
No,
that and
yeah.
community feedback and stuff. Are there times when you decide like not to take advice or feedback or suggestions? Like, do you as an artist have to take responsibility and say like, no, my vision is blank?
Yeah, I mean, there were more times when people were more direct on telling you like, well, you should change this, either color or even her hand placement. And to me, with the vision that I was keeping, I was like, nah, I mean, I want to capture this moment as this magic is happening, whether she's doing this with her hands or whether she thought it, or I want to depict what I'm seeing in my head, so I just stuck to her with that motion and him opening his, so yeah.
Perfect. We're gonna take about a 10-second break. You can start that over.